So if we put together what we saw in the question and answer video, the vision video, and what we know of Marvel Comics, we can really start to break down and put together the characters that will appear in the Age of Fear. Let's go right on and get into it. One of the first images that they showed us was that Trinity knot, right? So that's normally an Asgardian symbol. We recognize that again as an Asgardian symbol, and usually it's braided or it's metallic. Sometimes it's both. But in this case, what do we see? We see what looks like to be a dragon, what looks like to be a snake, what looks like to be a serpent. And that is 100% telling for who we're dealing with. The serpent from Asgardian lore is Cul Borson, again, aka the Serpent. So we're identifying him as the main bad guy. He is the mythic character, the mythic chase that we're going to be going for in the Age of Fear. The second image that they show is this one here. And again, it says Fear Itself. It's a comic book cover, Fear Itself. And we're going along again with that title, Fear Itself. There's nothing to fear except fear itself. Cul Borson, the serpent, is the god of fear. So once again, we have a direct reference to him. And if we follow that storyline, we know that he indeed is the main enemy throughout. Also, what we see there is Thor's hammer, and it looks to be broken. That itself, again, is something that it's illustrative of what we're talking about. It's illustrative of what we're talking about. So remember that Ryan Jacobson, during the question and answer session, he talked about the breakers, right? He talked about the breakers. And on the next picture here, we see Thor fighting against one of those breakers. He has an Asgardian hammer. And again, him and Thor, they're going at it. If we look closer, though, what we're going to see, what we'll notice is that particular character, that breaker, is Ben Grimm the Thing. So the Thing, he's a good guy, right? He's a good guy, but he has one of these hammers. He's corrupted by it. He becomes a general, so to speak, for Cul Borson. And so then he's a bad guy, right? He's a breaker. So him and Thor are fighting. The Thing is already a strong individual, but now he has an Asgardian upgrade and the fight is on. So how does this work? What's going on? What are we talking about? Let's go ahead and get into it. So who is the serpent? Well, as we say, his name is Cul Borson. Do we have any indication about what's going on? Well, think about how the culture works. We have Thor, Odin's son, right? That's how the culture works. You're named after your father. So we have Thor, Odin's son. Then we have Cul Borson. Have we seen anybody else with the last name Borson? The answer to that question is yes, Odin Borson. So there it is. Cul and Odin are brothers. Cul is the older brother. So the indication there is that he is stronger than Odin. Also, since he's the older brother, he's the one saying he has the claim, and he has a legitimate claim to be the ruler of Asgard. He was locked away for a long time. That's how the stories always go. And now he's back to get revenge and claim what's his. How's he going to go about doing this? Well, he's the god of fear, and he's been put away for a while. He's weak. He needs to regain his strength if he's going to challenge Odin. So the way he does this is he needs to get people panicked. He needs to get people riled up. He needs to cause fear so that he can get strength and be strong enough then to challenge Odin. So he throws these hammers down all over the world. And certain individuals get a hold of them. They kind of call out to certain individuals. They get a hold of them. As we saw, they're transformed into one of these breakers, right? So if you have the Thor's hammer, if you're worthy and you're able to pick up Thor's hammer, you kind of get this garb, right? You're worthy to become the power of Thor. You kind of get his power and you get this garb that kind of looks like him, right? So again, Cul, he has these generals, right? These breakers. You get this hammer. It kind of calls out to you. Get it? That's why he looks different. He looks more like one of these other generals. You kind of get the power of that individual. So Cul, he's very meticulous in how he goes about doing things. He's very smart. He's a tactician. So he chose individuals for different reasons. Some of them are extraordinarily powerful in their own right. So we got Ben Grimm the Thing. He's already strong, and now he has an Asgardian upgrade. Cul also picked the Incredible Hulk and the Juggernaut to be part of those breakers as well. So think about that. Those are some ridiculously strong guys in their own right. And now they're just as strong, if not stronger, than Thor they're bad guys and they're fighting with no abandon, right? They're holding nothing back. And this is happening all over the world. Obviously, the point is to cause mass panic and hysteria. These are the breakers of will, right? That's their intent. That's their purpose. They're called breakers of will. And this is how he's going to regain his power. So how do we take this and start feeding this back into Marvel Strikeforce? Well, Ryan Jacobson said that the first breaker we were going to see is the Silver Surfer. That's amazing. That's significant. It shows that our Cul Borson, right, our Serpent, right, in Marvel Strikeforce is operating on that same wavelength, right? He's taking somebody who's incredibly strong, incredibly powerful. He corrupts them. And now the Silver Surfer, who's normally a kind individual, he's very strong, or a herald of Galactus. He's very strong. Now he's been corrupted and he's going to be causing mass panic, damage, and hysteria, while our version of Cul Borson perhaps powers up, or maybe he's already powered and he's trying to take on some type of other goal. I'm really interested to see what direction they take this. Now, we also have another interesting point, since it was Silver Surfer who's mentioned, because in a normal comic book storyline, Silver Surfer is not one of those breakers, right? There's 6 or 7 of these hammers. Yeah, I know I said it, 6 or 7 of these hammers that are thrown out throughout the earth. And the Silver Surfer is not one of those individuals who receives a hammer. What does that indicate? Well, that indicates that we're kind of going their own way, right? Marvel Strikeforce is going their own way. They're telling their own version of the story, similar to how they did with the Age of Apocalypse, right? In the Age of Apocalypse, there were the 4 horsemen. All of the horsemen that they chose were not traditionally members we think of as the 4 horsemen of Apocalypse. Some of them were, some of them weren't. So perhaps this is a throwback to that. It's kind of letting us know subconsciously that, yes, we're going back to the golden age of Marvel Strikeforce. So we should see some of these individuals, some of these breakers that we're used to, and we're going to see new ones as well. Similarly to the comics, anybody can be chosen, right? He chooses individuals, so anybody can be chosen. Any character, hero or villain, can be chosen to be one of these breakers. So I'm really, really curious to see how this is going to play out during the Age of Fear. What characters will we see that could be corrupted and become one of these breakers? Another individual that Ryan Jacobson mentioned is the Destroyer, right? He's going to be the next Battle World boss after the Maestro. The Destroyer armor, iconic, we recognize it, is also of Asgardian origin. And so what we have here is a theme, right? We have a very strong Asgardian tie-in theme, and that helps us to understand a little bit about some of the characters that might be chosen. So, for example, what about Thor? Just in general, what about Thor? He's the hero. His character is older. It could use an upgrade. It could use a rework. So will they rework Thor when it comes to the Age of Fear storyline that's being presented for us here? I think there's a strong indication that that will happen. In addition, they could simply not do that and maybe give us a new version of Thor, a Age of Fear, Fear itself, Thor, right? He looks a lot more similar to the Siege costume that we already have here. So maybe this is something that's already in the game, but Thor, I mean, his costume doesn't vary wildly in the comics, right? His look is fairly iconic. We kind of get the point. We know what Thor looks like. But where would he go, right? If we rework that character, or if we even got a new version of that character, he's got to be on a team of some sort. So if we look at the rest of the Asgardians that are already in the game, which one of them could benefit from a rework? Well, I mean, most of them can. So will there be a couple of individuals here that get the rework? A couple that come to mind just for me is Beta Ray Bill. Beta Ray Bill, great character. And when he was released, I think there was a little bit of lackluster to him, right? He's a good character. He's iconic. Some people felt that, man, maybe he just needed to have a little bit more. So perhaps this is an opportunity for him to get reworked and get his just due. Whenever we talk about Thor, we usually then have to talk about Loki. Again, he'd be an easy person to upgrade as well. Thematically, it would make sense, but there are other characters here that also could be mentioned. I really like to hear from you which of these characters you think could benefit the most from a rework. We also need some new characters. So concerning the question that we had asked on a different video earlier, we have Nils here that answered for as far as new characters. He said Destroyer, Malekith, Curse, the Executioner, Lorelei, Enchantress, Surtur, and Mangog should be added to the game. So we see some of his wish is going to come true. We are definitely getting, as I said, the Destroyer armor. And there's other characters here that would make a lot of sense. Lorelei is a character that I am not familiar with, so I have to look her up. And that's the beauty of, again, Marvel Comics. That's the beauty of the community. There's people that feel passionate about a lot of characters. We might know them, some we might not. That's what's interesting. There's tons of characters they can lean into. There's tons of story paths that they can take. So in the story, again, you have these upgraded Asgardians all over the world. Thor can only be in one place at one time. So as happens in these stories, the good guys are losing, the bad guys are winning, and we need something to turn the tide. So Iron Man comes up with a really good idea. Think about it like this. The Infinity Gauntlet from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It was just a glove meant to house the gems. Was that glove magic, or was it technology? It was technology, right? It was technology. And so Iron Man starts thinking about that similarly. He starts thinking about, well, Asgardians, Asgard's a magical place, right? They use magic for everything, except for, it seems to me that they have these vehicles, and the vehicles run on technology. They have homes that are powered, that they run on technology. And he starts thinking about that principle that in reality, sometimes the only difference between what we would perceive as magic is just technology that's so far advanced that we don't understand how it works. So if that's the case for Asgard, right, are there then a technology? He's a technology genius. So is there a technology as a weapons expert? Could he build weapons of Asgardian origin that would help them fight against these breakers, right? So these individuals who are walking around with these hammers, who Marvel kind of identifies them as the worthy. Would there be something that could be done to stand against those individuals? He talks to Odin about it. Odin agrees, and Iron Man gets to work, and he does indeed create weapons based on Asgardian technology that he then distributes to the heroes. This group becomes the Mighty, and they're fighting against these breakers, or the worthy. So those are the two groups. So could we see the Mighty also introduced during the Age of Fear? It's, again, this was one of the biggest overarching storylines of the time. So again, you think about the Infinity Gauntlet series, if you've ever read that, it went into all different sorts of Marvel comics. This Fear Itself storyline did the same thing, right? Avengers, X-Men, Spider-Man, it went all over the place. Doctor Strange, and all these individuals were able to get weapons from Tony Stark to fight back against the breakers. So we're talking about people like Hawkeye. We're talking about Captain America, right? Mutants like the Wolverine, right? Mighty Wolverine would be awesome. He'd be awesome to come to the game. And of course, Iron Man himself. So could there be a faction that's also introduced into the game? That's the Mighty. Again, it's anybody, right? It's anybody. When you have these world-ending situations, just because a person's a villain doesn't mean he's not fighting on the side of the hero, right? That happens. So it could be anybody that we could see that could be one of those Mighty, just as it could be anybody that we could see that would become one of those breakers, one of those worthy. So that's kind of the outline. That's kind of the thinking. I want to know what you think. Are we on the right track here? Are we leaning in the right direction? There is, though, one caveat. There is one thing that I didn't dig into that we need to talk about. Ryan Jacobson said that the first breaker was going to be the Silver Surfer. Inside of the Fear Itself storyline, the individual who started everything, the individual who kicked everything off, the individual who was the first breaker was Cynthia Sin Schmidt, the daughter of the Red Skull. She actually is the one who found the first hammer and became Skadi, the daughter of Cul. Right? Skadi, Cul's daughter. So then you have Odin with his son Thor, and you have Cul with his daughter Skadi. Family dynamic. It's a very deep storyline. But anyway, she's the one who, again, found this first hammer. She realized that Cul was in prison. She's the one who broke him out, right? She's the one who really kicked this off and ended up being a main opponent of Thor for most of the run. So by saying that Silver Surfer was the first breaker, I'm wondering, is that just right? Is that just talk? In the sense of, will Skadi still be part of the storyline, or have they pivoted away? Since she's essentially a Hydra agent, Maybe that might be distasteful to bring up. I don't know. Or perhaps, again, we're just learning. We're just learning. So perhaps she's still going to be part of the storyline, and she's really going to be one of those individuals that keeps popping up and bothering us for the entirety of the story. There is another option. They could maybe flip the script just a little bit, right? Cynthia Smith, she's an agent, right? She's a special agent, just trained to be an assassin and things of that nature. Is there another person in Marvel Comics who's a red-headed assassin who's been trained since birth to be an agent and an operative that could use a rework? Hey, man, you tell me. You tell me. There could perhaps be a pivot there. We don't know. We're going to have to wait to see. Again, I'm really, really anxious to see how this story plays out, how it goes. What is the future of Marvel Strikeforce? How much of this stuff are they going to put into the game? How many of these characters are going to appear? How many rosters are going to be adjusted? That's something that I'm curious about, right? So if Silver Surfer is the first breaker, and traditionally, what do we get for legendary characters in here? 3 legendary characters. So will 2 of those be breakers, and maybe one of those be the Mighty, and then maybe that individual, kind of like Blue Marvel right now, that epic character, will he also be a Mighty? Are we going to go 2 and 2, or is there some other plan in place? I'd like to know what you think. I'd like to know what characters you think are going to come to the game, what reworks you think are going to come to the game. How much of this are they going to lean on for Marvel proper, take right out of the comics, and how much of this are they going to invent to put it into our own universe here in Marvel Strikeforce? I'm really curious to know what you think. Are we on the right topic? Let me know what you think in the comments below. If you haven't seen this video right here, please check it out. Desir allowed me to be on the show. We sat down, talked a little bit. Let me know what you think about that as well. Take care of yourself and your family. Peace.